Okay, so I think we are live. Very good evening to everyone present over here. My name is Ashutosh, and I will be your host for this evening. So, today, again, we have a special guest with us. Her name is Ranga, and he's instructor at Udemy, DevOps veteran, and cloud veteran. Okay, so today we are going to talk with Mr. Ranga. So, what is the core meaning of cloud? Why cloud is so popular? And why this is so hot in market? Why people are going for the cloud certifications like AWS, Azure, GCP, right? So today all of the questions will get answered, and I hope you all enjoy this journey with me. And before just wasting the time, let's talk to our guest. So, Ranga, how are you?
Glad, Ashutosh. Really, really happy to be here.
Yeah,
I'm doing pretty well. And I'm also
awesome.
excited. Actually, I wanted to see, okay, what kind of questions do learners have about learning the cloud, learning DevOps, learning AWS. And today the focus is on AWS. So I'm really, really interested to talk about it.
Exactly. Awesome. This is so great. So, shall we start?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, this is great. So, uh, before directly jumping towards the different available clouds in the market like AWS and like GCP, Azure, uh, private clouds, different clouds are available like OpenStack or something. So let's directly before jumping and on any other category, right? So can you please just clarify why we need to use cloud? Obviously, let's say if someone buy a laptop, it has 32 GB of RAM and different available configurations, and that respective computer is fulfilling everything. So why cloud? What is the core meaning of cloud?
Absolutely. Right. So if you look at, let's take an example of a startup, right? Let's say you're building up a startup. Let's say it's in the shopping field. And let's say you are running a sale. Right? At the time of a sale, you would actually need a lot of infrastructure because a lot of users would be using your application. But
Definitely.
for the rest of the year, like your infrastructure would probably have less amount of load, right? So the number of servers you would need varies with time. I don't need the same number of computers over or servers over throughout uh, the lifetime of a specific application. And also, let's imagine another scenario, right? The startup suddenly became really successful. Like yesterday, there were 1,000 users, and today they have like 1 million users, right?
Yeah.
Even in that scenario, for you to scale up from, let's say, one server to support 1,000 users to, let's say, 100 servers to support 1 million users, you would need to quickly buy infrastructure and put it in place, which is very, very challenging, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem that cloud solves. You don't really like a startup should be focused on a business problem, not on a technical infrastructure kind of a thing. So that's what cloud allows startups,
Mhm.
enterprises to do, right? It allows you to focus on the problem you would want to solve and not on how to get the infrastructure for that specific problem. So
Definitely.
if a startup or an enterprise, they can request AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, I need a server of this type, of this kind, of this
Mhm.
size of memory, of this
Yeah.
hardware configuration, and AWS or Azure or Google Cloud would provide you that server. And that's the concept
Definitely.
of cloud, right?
This is the base.
And
Yeah, this is the very basic thing which you're given. Yeah, good. Yeah.
absolutely.
So
And
that,
going
yeah.
further, cloud also brings in a lot of flexibilities, right? It's like the cloud vendors did not stop just with uh, giving you infrastructure, right? As with anything, you start a shop, you'd start with selling some basic product, and after that, you'd start selling some value added products, right? On top of
Yeah.
it. And that's what
Right.
cloud platforms also started doing. They started offering databases, they started offering managed services to deploy applications easily. They started
Mhm.
services which makes running DevOps very, very easy. They started offering services which makes running machine learning very, very easy. So that's the
Yeah.
reason why you'd see that a lot of enterprises start with the basic thing. I mean, basically, like, I don't want to have the infrastructure in my data center. I would rather rent it over, and slowly they would go up the value chain, right? They would slowly start making use of the managed services related to compute, databases, machine
Yeah.
learning, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So you're given, a very clean answer. So why actually the requirement of cloud is there in the market, right? So
Yeah.
let's jump into the categories. Different cloud providers are available in the market. One of the hottest cloud provider in the market is AWS, which is provided by
Right.
Amazon Web Services, the full form. As this is a very common thing which everyone should know. So what is AWS and what it is used for actually? So that is the
Absolutely,
question.
right. So Amazon Web Services was not the first cloud platform. Actually, I remember Google Cloud had a cloud offering called Google App Engine even before AWS. But AWS was the first one which became very popular.
Mhm.
uh, AWS was the first one which kind of got into the enterprise headspace, and a lot of enterprises started using some of these services which was provided by AWS. Right? If you look at AWS, one of the first services which was offered by AWS was S3. Right? S3
Yeah.
is like the storage service, the object storage service which is present in AWS. That's the first one which was the service which was offered by AWS, and people started picking up AWS like anything. Over a period of time, other clouds also started getting popular. Like since the time Satya Nadella became CEO, Azure
Mhm.
also started doing pretty well. And even Google Cloud, I would say, last couple of years since Thomas Kurian took over, even Google Cloud is starting to do well. So today, if you look at the pecking order, AWS and Azure are kind of fighting for the first place, and Google Cloud is like somewhere behind. However,
Mhm.
what we are talking about in here is the volume of sales or volume of enterprises that are making use of these specific clouds.
Yeah.
Based on the type of the enterprise, based on the workload they are trying to run, based on the geography, which specific continent or country you are located in, these factors vary a lot, and
Yeah.
based on these factors you would choose the appropriate cloud platform. But AWS, you can definitely say if somebody is learning AWS today, they would do really well, because they would be there are so many open opportunities, and the only way I see going forward is that cloud is going to become even much more important. So whether we are talking about enterprises or startups, cloud is going to be really important. So yeah, learning AWS or Azure or Google Cloud is a great thing to do for for any beginner into technology.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is a great answer which is given. So AWS is as you said, this is much popular than other clouds available, cloud providers available in the market. So most of the time, startups like the small startups who, let's say, who have some static website, or they just need something which will help you out to just deploy a website in the less amount of money. So AWS is much more reliable cloud. Let's say they are just deploying something like static website they can host on S3, which is available, in a small amount they can use, and which is a great offering which is given by AWS. So
Yeah.
yeah, AWS is growing exponentially, and even the Google Cloud is offering different services like GKE, which is much more powerful, or something like Azure and different. Okay, so awesome. Let's directly move towards the next question. If you have learned AWS, let's say if someone has learned AWS or something, so is AWS a good career option, and how AWS is a good career option?
Absolutely. Right. So, I mean, when we talk about careers, we are talking about working for a startup, working for an enterprise, or starting a startup of your own. Right. Irrespective of whichever option you pick, uh, the enterprises are moving towards the cloud. Right. Cloud is going almost like 30% every year, and given 5 or 10 years, I think almost 95% of the enterprises would have 90% of their workloads in the cloud. So we are talking about a technology space which is growing really fast, and which is even today, like when I look at like the number of job openings which are open for AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, it's pretty high. Right? If you look
Mhm.
at any job portal, probably AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud would be in the top 10 list of things which people are searching talented people for. Right. So
Definitely.
in that sense, it's a very interesting space. So there are a lot of opportunities out there. The second thing is it's a very interesting thing, right? So learning the cloud for me, like I was deploying applications in my local machine or in the data center for a long time, and as soon as I saw cloud, it gave me new opportunity to learn new things, and also it gives me flexibility to do things which were not possible earlier, right? So
Yeah.
let's say I would want to deploy a server in Australia or in any other country around the world. With
Mhm.
AWS, I can go and do it with a click of a button, right?
Exactly.
If I would want to deploy a static website which is served by millions, which serves millions of users, today I can do that. So
Yeah.
if you look at cloud, it not only has job opportunities, but also technically it allows me to do a lot of things. It gives me a lot of flexibility in terms of running machine learning, in terms of learning DevOps. So definitely it's a great career option to go for. So it's for me, like, learning cloud today is a no brainer. It's just the question of when you learn the cloud, but not if you want to learn the cloud.
So that whatever you're doing, either you are doing development or whatever, cloud, the knowledge of cloud is necessary. Whether you are doing ML, whether you're doing development or whatever, according to your point, and this is completely valid thing, that knowledge of cloud at each and every step is necessary, right? So
Absolutely.
obviously, how you will just manage your data, right? So let's take a question from the comment section right now, as this is related to the previous question. So Atul in the comment section asked that, is it possible to get a job, okay, as a cloud engineer or something, with a basic knowledge of AWS, that is fundamental knowledge of AWS?
Absolutely. It's definitely possible to get a job as a fresher, as a cloud engineer. But the
Mhm.
important things would be to, A, to have something to demonstrate your knowledge of the cloud, right? Uh, I would say, certifications might be a good way to go. The other one I would recommend is to also go with a GitHub profile of your own. So whatever
Mhm.
projects you have created, put them on GitHub, and like have some demonstrable real experience on the cloud and showcase that on GitHub. So if you have the skills and you know how to showcase them, like certifications, GitHub repositories, there are a lot of people who would take cloud engineers, uh, I mean fresher cloud engineers,
Yeah, yeah,
especially because there's a scarcity of talent, right? It's not like there is a lot of talent available. Like cloud is something which is still new. I mean, it's been 5 years, a little bit more, since the time
Mhm.
cloud has become really, really popular, but still it's relatively a very young field. And the number of people who have a lot of experience with the cloud, right? If I'm saying I would want 20 years of somebody with 10 years of experience in the cloud,
Yeah,
you can't find them. You don't have people who have that experience at all, right? So
exactly.
it, even enterprises don't have any other alternative. It's not like, for example, if it's Java, I can say 20 years of Java experience or 20 years of Python experience, but I cannot
Exactly.
say the same thing with cloud, because cloud is very young industry and there is a scarcity of talent. And therefore, the best way to get people is people to test people for their knowledge and get them into the field.
Yeah. So this is the, a complete answer which you have given. So how you can, what actually people are looking for, and you can get the job in the cloud by using the steps which you have given, right? So let's say, obviously, if someone has started learning the cloud, but they are a bit confused that what track they should use. So any prerequisites for learning AWS?
Prerequisites as such, I think if you are planning to get into the technology field as a programmer, uh, what I would recommend you to do is to first focus on programming and building applications, right? These are not prerequisites. Cloud is
Mhm.
something which even a business analyst can learn, even a tester can learn, right? It's like, so whatever I'm talking about are not prerequisites. But if you're looking at a technology career, what I would recommend you to do is to first focus on the fundamentals of technology, which is programming, learning to build good applications, learning. And if you are aiming for jobs which need good knowledge of data structures, good knowledge of algorithms, that's also very, very important. So depending on the
Yeah.
jobs you are aiming for, programming, building applications, and if needed, data structures and algorithms, those are the fundamentals when we are talking about somebody who's going to do computer science, right?
Yes,
So
definitely.
uh, those are not prerequisites for learning cloud, but I would think somebody who wants to be a programmer, who wants a technical career path in the industry, needs to know that before getting into AWS. You can learn AWS without them. but you will make the best use of AWS when you have those skills. So if you look at AWS, right, so there are a lot of certifications that are available based on your level. A lot of non-technical folks like business analysts, maybe sales people, maybe
Hmm.
people who are into like testing, they don't really need to understand the technical details of the cloud, but they need to have a high level understanding of how to use the cloud. So
Definitely.
there are certifications like AWS Cloud Practitioner, which are really, really good starting points. You like if you want to do AWS Cloud Practitioner, you basically don't really need any prerequisite as such. You can directly start with that as a certification. You don't even need to know a lot about computers and things like that. But if you want to go to the next technology certifications, right, if you want to get into developer certifications or architect certifications, that's where having technical knowledge will really,
Yeah,
really help.
exactly. Because doing programming and solving the questions of data structures in a different way, which are available, obviously will grow your thinking power. And
Absolutely.
in the end, you need to deploy solutions on the cloud, right? Cloud is not just a playground and you are just deploying something and you are paying money, right? So the thinking strategy on the cloud is very, very much necessary. And you can increase the brain power or the thinking strategy by just doing programming, solving questions available, right? So
Absolutely.
obviously it will double up your thinking power, double up your thinking strategy, and obviously it will help you out in solving the problems, architecting the solutions over any of the cloud. Here we are talking about AWS, right? So in the end, programming will surely help you out. Let's say if someone is making a function, lambda function, obviously programming or functional language is required. Functional background is required there, right? So let's take
Absolutely.
another question. What actually the prerequisites uh, to learn? So I think we have just a second. Yeah, so we have took this question. Sorry, the correct approach to learn the AWS.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think um, a lot of people actually think about this, right? I want to learn the cloud. How do I learn it? The amazing thing is each of the cloud platforms provides free tier access to these cloud platforms, right?
Mhm.
So you can actually directly log into AWS and start learning AWS. So you can go to AWS, create a free tier account, uh, and start learning AWS. The same is the case for other cloud platforms as well. So if you are planning to learn AWS, right, the best way is if you are developing an application, try and deploy that application to AWS, right?
Yeah.
That's the best way to learn. Uh, if I'm building a web application or a full stack application or any kind of application, how would I run it in AWS? That might be a good starting point to get to know the important service related to what you are doing. For example, if I'm, let's say, building a Python application, then probably I can deploy it using Elastic Beanstalk. So I would go
Mhm.
to Elastic Beanstalk and try and deploy it. Or I would create a container image for the application and deploy it using probably something like Fargate, right? So those are the starting points. I'll probably play with a little bit of databases in the cloud, right? So if I would want to set up an Oracle database on my local, it might be a little tough. But if I go to AWS, I can easily provision a RDS database with MySQL or RDS database with Aurora. Those kind of things I can easily provision and I can play with them, right? So that's where I will start, because a lot of people are familiar with compute and databases. I'll start playing with compute and database services in the cloud. Now, that's kind of an approach where we are taking a hands on route. The alternate approach is to kind of use a structured approach based on certifications, right?
Mhm.
So, if you are a hands on guy who likes doing things, I would say try and deploy applications. If you like structured learning where you would want to have certain milestones, in that kind of scenarios, certifications might be a great way to start,
Yeah.
right? If you would want to start with AWS Cloud Practitioner certification first, maybe do a developer certification next, maybe do an architect certification next. Those would be a good starting points to give you focus. Especially a structured approach is very, very important when it comes to the cloud, because there are so many services, right? If you look at AWS, it started with S3, but today AWS offers more than 200 plus services, right? So how do I learn all those services? It's impossible to be an expert at all of them. How do you know what is important out of those 200 services? Which ones are important, which ones are not important? How do I choose? It's very, very difficult, and that's where certifications help, because during when I'm pursuing a certification, there is a predefined structure, and I can follow that structure and become an expert on those areas which are tested by the certification. And over a period of time, certifications are just the starting point, right? Over a period of time, what you would want to be able to do is to do things with the cloud. Cloud is just a tool you want to make use of. Eventually, you'd
Definitely.
want to be able to deploy applications to the cloud. You'd want to be able to create a database. You would want to be able to create an application, have it talk to the database. So once you clear your certifications, you should also focus on building like a set of hands-on experience and
Yeah.
demonstrate it through, let's say, GitHub profiles or things like that.
Yes, yeah. So correct approach which you have given, and just make the applications deploy over the cloud. Make the application deploy over the cloud. So this is the steps which you have given. Obviously, no one can become expert in all of the 200 services provided by AWS. Let's say if
Absolutely.
someone is expert in deployment services like ECS, EKS, or CI/CD services which are provided, code pipeline or something. So one can be expert in the section, not on the whole AWS. This is an endless thing which is given. So just need to
Absolutely.
check your use cases, which with the services which are fulfilling your use case, and
Exactly.
you
This is a
need to be.
12-page printout. You can see it here, right? So this is a 12-page printout. This is just list of services in Google
Oh
Cloud
no.
and what their comparative names are in AWS Azure, right? So it's impossible. I mean, if I can't even remember the list of names, forget uh, being a master at each one of them. There's
Exactly,
no chance.
exactly. Is good, bro. The 12-page thing, no one can be the expert. This is as simple as that thing, right?
Exactly.
So, let's check another question. What should one learn before AWS? Before directly jumping towards AWS, what should an individual learn before stepping up?
Right. So if you look at the cloud, right, there are certain fundamental aspects that you need to understand. You need to understand how you deploy applications today and how you'd want to deploy applications in the cloud. So that's kind of what you'd want. How things were done before the cloud and how things would be done with the cloud. And when you're getting into the cloud, some of the important concepts that you need to understand is how technology is evolving also, like
Mhm.
infrastructure as a service, container as I mean, platform as a service. And today, like if you look at the world outside, right, we are talking about containers, container orchestration, serverless.
Yeah.
So, like having a good overview of all these is important when you get to the cloud. But I think a lot of like places where you can go, let's say you are preparing for a certification, probably there are resources you would use for that, right? You would probably check videos or courses, or you might be reading a book. A lot of these books also cover these fundamentals very, very well. So books, videos, courses, they also help you to learn the fundamentals. So a lot of these prerequisites which you need to know to understand AWS and the cloud well, probably they are already covered as part of those books and courses. So if you want to start with something like a cloud practitioner certification, right?
Mhm.
Typically, the approach I take is I assume that the learner who's trying the AWS cloud practitioner certification does not have
Mhm.
any technology experience. So
Yeah.
I would assume that he does not know what is infrastructure as service, what is container, what is serverless. He probably knows how to use a computer. That's kind of the basic skill, and that's the kind of person to which we decide. I mean, we design the curriculum based on that, right? So if you look at our course for AWS cloud practitioner, it would assume that you have familiarity with the computer, and that's all. And that's the reason why people from sales background, people with uh, like business background, or people who are into testing, those are the
Yeah.
guys who are also able to do our courses. So yeah, I think if somebody is getting into AWS, no prerequisites as such, because cloud is something which almost everybody should be able to use. uh, so
Mhm.
to get the basic knowledge on the cloud, I doubt if uh, there are prerequisites. But as I said earlier, if you're getting into
Yeah.
a technology career, into programming career, focus on programming before getting into cloud.
Definitely.
Because as far as I'm concerned, learning programming takes years, learning cloud maybe a few months.
Exactly, exactly. Because that's why the name is cloud practitioner given, and the practitioner simply means who is just practicing the cloud
Exactly.
and who is just stepping up on the very first ladder of the cloud, and that's the thing which demonstrate the name even demonstrate what is the core meaning of the cloud practitioner, and this is the very finest certification offered by AWS. And let's say uh, if someone would like to start learning cloud, but they need to know what are the advantages, what are the offerings which are given by AWS services. So why should one need to know the advantages of AWS services? What actually are the advantages of AWS services?
Yeah, right. So earlier we talked about one of the advantages around like the cloud, right? Why do we go to the cloud? Is because it's cheaper. You can get resources whenever you'd want, and you have the flexibility to create resources anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
And we said there is a value added service which are provided by cloud platforms as well. I think these value added services are some of the biggest advantages that enterprises are making use of today, right? So earlier, if I would want to, let's say, deploy a Java application, first thing I would need to do is to provision a server. Then I would need to go and install Java, and then I would need to go and install, uh, copy the application over, and probably do a lot of setup. There are a lot of steps in deploying applications. But if today I'm making use of, let's say, Elastic Beanstalk in AWS, all that I need to do is give it a var or a jar file, and it
Yeah.
takes care of everything, right? If I would want to increase the number of, if I would want, let's say, not just one server, but I would want 100 servers, right? Uh, Things like scaling up, like increasing the number of servers, decreasing the number of
Exactly.
servers, like you'd want to be able to do this automatically. If I have 100 server 100, maybe if I have 1,000 users, I would want just one server. If I have 10,000 users, probably I need 10 servers.
Exactly.
Maybe in the evening I have 5,000 users, in the night I have 10,000 users, the next day morning I only have 1,000 users, right? Doing this curve up and down, you can do that manually. You can increase the number of servers manually, or you can make use of something like auto scaling. Auto scaling
Exactly.
can look at what are the number of users who are present and automatically increase the number of servers up or down. Those kind of features are automatically provided for you by Elastic Beanstalk. Like if you're using
Yeah.
Elastic Beanstalk, you can configure auto scaling, and it would automatically increase the number of servers or decrease the number of servers. Those kind of things earlier we used to do manually,
Mhm.
right? Manually, you had an operations team who used to look at how many people are uh, coming in, or you pre-decide, okay, at this time there'll be this many users, and I'll configure increase or decrease. Today with the cloud, you don't really need to do that. So AWS provides you with a lot of managed services, like things like
Mhm.
availability, durability, auto scaling. A lot of these features are automatically implemented for you. You don't really need to
Yeah.
worry about them. The one of the biggest advantages of most of the managed services in AWS, or actually for that matter all the other clouds as well, is the fact that now you can focus on the code. You focus on what's the application, and you don't really need to worry about a lot of non-functional features, scalability, availability, durability, all these kind of things. The cloud platform really does a good job in taking care of.
Yeah, yeah. So another good answer which is given. So let's say you just need to sleep off, right? AWS or the cloud will take care of everything. Either it is auto scaling, provisioning, management, whatever. You just need to give the data. The cloud will handle everything, right? So this is the most finest part of the managed services which is offered by the cloud, AWS cloud. So like as you said, the part of auto scaling, which is the optimal thing, right? Let's say the load is increasing exponentially, so the nodes will get doubled in the amount, right? So to handle the requests which are hitting the cluster or something, or any of the AWS service, right? So uh, in our previous video, Rangas, we have discussed about DevOps, right? So today we are talking about AWS. So most of the people would like to know, as DevOps is also very hot in the market. So what actually the difference between AWS and DevOps?
Right. So DevOps is an approach to how we build software, right? In a software project, we have different kinds of team members. We talked about the fact that we have business analysts, we have testers, dev, and another important part which we often forget is the operations. Once you
Mhm.
deploy an application to production, you'd want to be able to observe what's happening in production. You'd want to be able to look at uh, any users who are facing problems, right? Is your application running as expected? And these operations team and the dev team need to communicate really, really well. So DevOps is focused on how to get the entire team to communicate, and also giving the right tools to the team so that they can productively build applications and manage them in production. Right? That's the goal of DevOps. DevOps is taking care of the uh, process aspect of things, the automation aspect of things. And cloud is the infrastructure. So cloud or AWS is the infrastructure. So it's like one of the advantages of actually learning cloud, learning AWS, uh, is that doing DevOps in AWS is much more easier than doing DevOps, let's say, in your data center,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
AWS provides a lot of services related to DevOps, right? If you
Mhm.
want to do infrastructure as code, AWS provides cloud formation. If you don't want to use
Formation.
that, you
Yeah,
can go for CDK, right? Or
yeah, yeah.
AWS CDK. Uh, AWS also provides a CI/CD service. You have code pipelines,
Code
right?
pipeline.
AWS also provides centralized monitoring, like CloudWatch. AWS also provides centralized mechanisms for logging, tracing, and things like that.
So,
So doing DevOps in cloud is much more easier than doing DevOps outside the cloud, because cloud provides you a lot of features that integrate your applications directly with all the features that you would want. If I'm making use of Elastic Beanstalk, deploying an application, managing it in production, everything I can integrate it with all the pre-existing services in AWS, and I'll be able to set it up in a very easy way. If I was
yeah,
doing that, the same kind of setup in my data center, I would need to spend a lot of effort in setting that up,
yeah,
right? So for me, like cloud is something which makes DevOps very easy. So
yeah.
a lot of times I actually recommend people, like, if you would want to learn DevOps, probably learn it on the cloud. So pick up one of the cloud platforms, go to the cloud platform, learn basics of the cloud, and then do DevOps in the cloud.
Exactly, exactly. So obviously, uh, setting up the Kubernetes cluster in a hard way will take hours, right? So you need
Absolutely.
to set up the nodes and the masters and whatever. You need to make the connections between them, and you need to check if they are connected or not. Whatever the API server, all the things for the Kubernetes thing, which is a very hard thing to set up manually. Setting up a manually Kubernetes cluster is a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Going with any cloud provider, let's say AWS, you can just within a few clicks you can start an EKS cluster, which is a completely managed service, Elastic Kubernetes service. So DevOps methodology will obviously help you out to deploy the applications over the cloud. So this is the integrated thing, right? If AWS or any cloud is there, DevOps is available, and doing and performing DevOps operation on the cloud will make the things much more easier than setting up the things on premises, right? So different types of cloud categories are available: private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. So many public clouds are available like GCP, AWS, private clouds like OpenStack. So, what actually is the difference between public and the private cloud?
All right. So let's say we talk about the public cloud first, right? So in public cloud, let's say there are 1,000 servers. Uh, one server might belong to customer one, another
Mhm.
server might belong to customer two, the third server might be might deploy applications from customer three and customer four. So when we are talking about public cloud, we are talking about shared infrastructure. The infrastructure which is present is shared between multiple customers. It might be a startup, it might be an enterprise, but it's a shared uh,
Here.
infrastructure. But when we are talking about private cloud, it's also similar kind of an infrastructure, but it's set up for a specific customer. So it's set up especially for the sake of a specific customer. So you can be sure when you're deploying an application there that there are no other applications from any other customers or any other enterprises which are present in that particular cloud, right? So a lot of these businesses have regulations that they need to adhere to, right? If you're talking about banking applications, or if you're talking about government related applications, right? uh, those applications have a lot of security related things that they need to adhere to, right? AWS, Azure, Google Cloud assure that uh, the cloud is really secure, the infrastructure is really secure, one enterprise will not see what's happening with the other enterprise. But still,
Mhm.
people are not really convinced, right? I mean, it's also regulations. A lot of a lot of enterprises need to adhere to regulations which need dedicated infrastructure. So a
Yeah.
lot of enterprises make use of private cloud as well. So private cloud is just a cloud like thing where you can dynamically provision and give it back. But private cloud is not as flexible as a public cloud, right? Public cloud uh, gives you much more flexibilities, a lot of managed services, but
Hmm.
private cloud is just like, probably if you just want to like have scaling of your like have dynamic capabilities on your infrastructure, that's when you'd go to private cloud.
Yeah, so that means private cloud is the cloud or the platform which is available only for a dedicated organization. That means no other person can use that. For the
Absolutely.
public one, that respective infra or that respective, let's say, a base is shared with different available customers or people. So they are using
Absolutely.
one shared thing, right? So this is the kind of a nail on the head answer which is given. So what are the different applications are available of AWS cloud?
Right. I mean, the applications are vast. Anything that you are doing with technology today, you can run it on the cloud, right? I mean, talking from simple static website, you can use S3 to deploy.
Yeah.
If you're building a Java application, a Python application, a web application, if you're building a full stack application, if you want to run a database, if you want to run a machine learning workload, if you want to run a data engineering workload, uh, a huge number of applications. So anything related to technology today, I would guess you can run it on the cloud, right? So that's how popular cloud is, and the applications of AWS are vast. I mean, huge number of.
Exactly.
I mean, I would rather say it's very difficult to find something where cloud cannot be used.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
anything
So
related to technology, you'd see cloud in place.
yes, exactly. So let's extend this thing. So we are talking about the application, right? So let's extend it this a bit more. Which companies use AWS? So this is an extension of previous question.
Yeah, I was reading a survey yesterday, right? The survey said almost 80% of the enterprises are making use of AWS in one way or the other. So if you
Yeah.
pick up Fortune 100 companies or Fortune 500 companies, right, 80% of the enterprises are making use of AWS. So you pick up a company, it's using AWS, right? So
Mhm.
one of the most popular ones is Netflix, right? Netflix was the one which started, like for me, like I started with the microservices architecture. I mean, that was one of the things which fascinated me, and Netflix was one of the big like enterprises which focused on the microservices architecture, and they were one of the first big users of AWS, big proponents of the cloud. So I would say Netflix is a good example, but
Mhm.
uh, look around and you'd see that almost every company you are working with is using AWS.
Definitely, because even I've read some of the case studies for this. Netflix, just for the video streaming thing, Netflix is using Kinesis video analytics services as the backend to just for the streaming of the videos. And the on the other end, let's say IMDb at the backend is using the search bar of IMDb is using AWS Open Search at the backend. So this is like I've read the case study for this, and these are real world use cases. The top companies like IMDb, Netflix, and n number of organizations, as Ranga said, that 80% of the organizations at the back end are available are using AWS as the cloud which they trust, right? So let's say if some person learned AWS, learned the services, deployed the applications, gained the hands-on experience, so what will be the next step after that?
I doubt if there's a next step after AWS, right? I mean, when do you say uh, you have learned AWS? I have not learned AWS yet, right? I
Mhm.
I know AWS. I've done a few certifications on it. I've deployed applications there, but do I know an entire thing in AWS? No. I think it's more like right. I mean, uh, there's no end to the
Exactly.
depth to which you would learn AWS. And I would go more based on the role and the
Mhm.
projects you're going to work on, right?
Mhm.
So one thing is, if you're going to work on an enterprise, like work with an enterprise who's actually using other clouds as well, maybe they're using Azure or Google Cloud, probably that's a good thing to learn as well. So one of the biggest challenges I see today is that enterprises are going multi-cloud, and they are also looking for multi-cloud talent. But finding talent for single cloud is difficult. Finding multi-cloud talent is almost impossible these days,
Definitely.
right? But if you are knowing multiple clouds, you have an advantage. But that does not mean when you're starting off you learn two clouds together or three clouds together. It will become almost like I'm learning Java, Python, and JavaScript together. What will
Yeah.
happen is I'll not learn any of them, right? So the best way to learn is to pick up one, become really good at it, and then go to others. So if you have worked with AWS for a couple of years, you are really, really familiar with it. And then probably you can actually jump into Azure or Google Cloud just to get an exposure to them. And
Yes.
if you have a good amount of experience with AWS, you'd see that uh, Azure and Google Cloud are much more easier to learn. You don't need to invest the same amount of effort that you put in to learn
Definitely.
AWS. It's similar, right? If I'm good at algorithms, if I look good at data structures, if I know one programming language, I can easily pick up other programming languages. It's not as tough as starting off. So the same thing
Definitely.
with AWS, right? So it's about how deep you want to go and do you want to widen your horizon, and also try and think about things like DevOps and things like that. So
Hmm.
try and get an overview of other things that you can do with AWS.
Exactly. So this is the, as you said, if you learned AWS, you can try another clouds. And this is the completely, the answer is completely correct. The names of the services are different only. Let's take an example. If we are using EC2 in AWS, exactly same thing is available as a compute engine in GCP, right? So
Yeah.
that's the thing. Let's say,
And Azure
let's
Virtual Machine in Azure.
exactly. So let's take another example. Like if you talking about VPC in AWS, that is a regional service. But if you talk about VPC in GCP, that is a global service. The concepts are same, but you will get the understanding now of if you learn the AWS or another cloud, jumping towards another cloud, you won't face any difficulties, right? Lambda function is available in AWS, cloud function is available in GCP. The concept is same.
Yep.
So
Yep.
no conflicts will be there if you jump up, right? It will be obviously helpful to, if you have the basic knowledge, to jump up towards another cloud, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yep. Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah. So let's take another question. So why all the companies move towards the cloud? Why?
I think Ashutosh, I think these questions are very similar to the earlier
Similar.
ones, right? So I guess we can probably skip this question because I think we
Exactly.
talked about it enough. Unless any of the watchers have specific questions related to that, I think we covered that question.
Yes, exactly. Because on-premises thing is gone, cloud is there, and we have just explained in different words why cloud is
Exactly.
necessary. Exactly. So let's jump up towards next. Why should we choose AWS over GCP or Azure?
Okay. Okay. I think very interesting question, especially like uh, if you look at enterprises, right? This is choices uh, from an enterprise perspective, and the other choices from a learner perspective, right?
Exactly.
So an enterprise perspective will be a lot of it's much more complex decision to make. When I'm talking about an enterprise, they need to take into account uh, what kind of applications they are going to deploy into the cloud, right?
Exactly.
So are they going to deploy a web application or a data engineering application or a machine learning application? They need to take care of geography, like specific clouds are popular in specific geographies. Which geography are they present? Are they in Europe? Are they in like US? Like you need to look at the cost of deploying your solution to each of the cloud platforms. You need to look at your regulations and look at which cloud meets the regulations. So whenever we are talking from an enterprise perspective, the decision is very, very complex. And typically enterprises take a few months or few years also to make that
Mhm.
choice, right?
Exactly.
But from a learner perspective, the decision is not so complex. When I'm looking at it from a learner perspective, the first question I would be thinking about is uh, which of these clouds can I become an expert on, right? So that's the only question, because I know AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure will have double the number of jobs in 5 years than they have today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not choosing AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. It's all of them are really, really good, right? So it does not matter. The question is not important from a learner's perspective. The learner perspective, what is important is which of these can I learn fast? Which of these I can get the support for, right? Do you have seniors who can help you learn? Do you have friends who can help you learn that specific thing? do you see jobs which are near to you, which are related to that? Right? Those are the factors that you need to take into consideration. But you randomly close your eyes, pick one, learn it, and become really, really good at it. You will get a lot of jobs around it, right? It does not matter which cloud, from a learner's perspective, does not really matter. I don't have a preference among these clouds. Like, I have actually certification courses in AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, because I
Yes.
feel it does not really matter. Like, which cloud does not really matter. Uh, yeah, learning it is difficult. Like, learning three clouds is difficult. So that's why you'd want to pick up one, and it should be
Mhm.
based on the support you would get on a specific cloud platform. So if you know friends who are good at AWS, go and learn AWS, because if you have a problem, you have somebody to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, so good point which is given. So that depends upon the use case, whatever you are using. Let's say if you're deploying the applications which require, let's say, deployment over Kubernetes. So if
Right.
you need 10 Kubernetes clusters which require a high amount of load, so obviously Google Cloud will be preferred, because the Google Kubernetes engine is one of the most powerful Kubernetes engine which I have personally used, right?
Mm,
And different use cases will be there, different scenarios will be there, and you need to choose. And obviously the biggest factor is costing. So you need to
exactly.
check which cloud is costing, if it is available in your reach. My voice is audible now.
Yeah, I can see you, Ashutosh. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So, what are the best resources to learn AWS? Is it free or paid?
Yeah. So there are a lot of free resources available for AWS. If you just go to YouTube and search for AWS certification, cloud practitioner certification, you would see that there are the resources available. AWS also runs a website of their own. AWS has AWS Skill Builder, which is a good website to go and learn. Let's say if you want to prepare for cloud practitioner exam, that might be a good place to start as well. And obviously, there are people like me who create courses, right? I create courses in Udemy on AWS. So I have courses on cloud practitioner, on, like, I have courses like on all the other clouds as well. So we have almost 10 courses. That's another place you can go for. Like, you can also go for things like Coursera, where you would also, like, I mean, Coursera, where there are platforms. I mean, where there are courses as well. Finally got it right. So yeah, there are a lot of places you can learn it from, right? So today, the biggest challenge learners face is the amount of choice that you have, right? Do you want to
Yeah,
learn from A or B or C or D? There are books also, right?
exactly.
So that's the biggest challenge. And yeah, it's about trying it out and figuring it out. So the advice I would typically give to people is, before you choose where to learn from, spend an hour with different things, right? So spend an hour on the AWS website itself, spend an hour reading the documentation, spend an hour uh, like going through the first 30 minutes of a course, right? So trying to understand what's there and see what works for you. Like, for me, I think the biggest challenge in the technology world is figuring out how to learn what works for
Yeah,
you, right? There is no
exactly.
one approach. The approach which works for me is books, right? I have a lot of them, but it does not mean it works for everybody. So you have to work out what is the best way to learn. And for me, like, if you ask me, I would say my course would be best place to start. But I
Definitely.
mean, if you ask around the world, uh, like, ask your friends, like, try and talk to a few people, like, try and get their experiences before you decide where to start learning from. But there are too many resources, right? YouTube, Udemy, Coursera, like, books, huge number of resources, AWS website itself.
Yeah,
So the question now is not about do we have resources, it's about which one can I focus on.
exactly. So n number of resources are available. Even your course on Udemy is available, and documentation. is available, everything is
Yeah.
there. So you need to check, you need to see what actually is fulfilling your requirements, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump towards a direct connected question. Can you tell us a bit more about community support of AWS?
Right. I think like AWS has, I mean, we talked about the fact that 80% of the enterprises, like somewhere around that number, is what is making use of AWS, right? And this will not be possible if support is not available. So
Mhm.
AWS, the support for community, I mean, the community support is very much there. Like AWS does a wonderful job at promoting that. Like once you start getting into the certifications, once you start getting into everything, there are a lot of
Yeah,
programs that AWS runs, like AWS Heroes, AWS Community Heroes, a lot of things that AWS does to get people into the AWS fold, to help people
exactly.
communicate. AWS also runs forums where people can post their questions, get support
Mhm.
from there. And AWS also runs training websites, like AWS Skill Builder is one of them, right? So
Yeah,
it does
yeah,
a lot to help people to learn AWS. And it's in the interest of AWS as well, right? AWS is one of the, I mean, AWS has really big competitors. Microsoft and Google are not small. And therefore, it's in the interest of AWS to ensure that it does everything to make sure that learning AWS is easy, to make sure that if somebody is facing a problem, they get the right support. So each of the cloud
yes,
platforms do really good job at it.
exactly. Yeah. So community support is given. That means, let's say if you talk about AWS training and certification, let's say the AWS heroes and different UG groups are available to know more about AWS. N number of communities are available. You can join,
Exactly.
learn more about the deep skills or whatever. So like AWS Reskill is also available. Different communities are available, which obviously will help you out to gain and learn the things and talk to the bright-minded people and with the
Absolutely.
surroundings. So obviously you will see the difference, right? And you will gain much more experience, much more exposure you will see, right? So gaining the community support or experiences will obviously will help you out in your AWS career, right? So let's take
Absolutely.
a final question over here. What is the future and scope of AWS?
I can, it's very simple, right? If you look at, uh, let's pick up something, right? Let's pick up a
Ah,
programming language or a framework, right? Will it be here after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? I'm not sure. Like whether Java would be here, Python would be here, whether
hmm,
we would be using Spring Boot, or Django, or whatever, Angular, React, right? But one thing I am certain which will be here is cloud, right? The
different.
cloud platforms might be different, right? It might not be probably AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. There might be a
Uh,
fourth platform or a fifth platform or a sixth platform, but these cloud platforms would be here. And that's where
mhm.
I think it's very important for everybody to learn AWS, because not just AWS, actually learn cloud in general. Like I would
Yeah.
not talk about AWS in specific, I would say cloud, right? So we cannot predict whether AWS will be top or Google Cloud will be top or Azure will be top in 10 years. But what I can definitely tell is the number of job opportunities in the cloud will be very high, right? I don't know which cloud will be popular. That's very difficult to predict. But I know that if you are good at AWS, or if you're good at Azure or Google Cloud, you can easily learn the other cloud platforms. And therefore, you'll have really good career prospects 10 years down the line. So, yeah, so uh, it's only one way, it's up, like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and the concept of cloud itself. The
Hmm.
future is very bright.
Definitely, because no one going to rely on the on-premises things, right? So, who can buy the computers with, let's say, 100 GB of RAM or something? Obviously, you can buy or rent out from the cloud, which is providing you with a very cheap cost. So,
Absolutely.
obviously, the cloud thing, obviously, we're not targeting AWS. Any cloud provider, as you said, fourth number, fifth number, whatever. So, cloud thing will never. I don't think so. It will, get go down
Exactly.
anytime because the data is increasing exponentially. The amount of data second by second is increasing exponentially. N number of companies are making their data in milliseconds. They are generating huge amount of data. So
Absolutely.
where they will keep such drastic amount of data. Obviously, something is required to handle such data. So cloud is the only thing, and obviously the future of cloud and DevOps development and operations is very, very, very uh, bright, or which is coming in the market and which is trending right now. So I
Absolutely.
think you have given the clearer idea of how the things are actually working, why cloud is required, right? So let's take some of the questions from the comments. There's one question, sorry, there's one compliment for you, Ranga. Just got his course today from for GCP. Cheers.
Good luck. Who is
Yeah,
that?
Ashik K is the
Ashik.
name. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good luck, Ashik. I'm
So,
doing good luck. I hope you like the course. Actually, I'm pretty sure you like the course. And also, if you are planning to do a certification, good luck with it as well.
yes. Okay. So let's take a question from Dimple. How to practice for cloud? Like any language we can practice or local using IDE, or how to do in case of cloud, like something. How to practice?
Yeah. So if you're a beginner for the cloud, I think logging into the cloud website is the best way. So AWS offers a
Mhm.
free tier. So just go to AWS, directly use the website to start off, right? When you're beginning, looking at the website will give you, using the website will help you understand AWS very, very well. So if you are, let's say, deploying an application, go to EC2, launch up an EC2 instance, connect to it, try and put an application there, or go and launch up Elastic Beanstalk and try and deploy an application, test application, see what's happening behind the screens. So using the UI is a great way if you are a beginner to the cloud. But over a period
Mhm.
of time, right, after you play with AWS for a couple of months, then you can look at how to automate it, not use the UI, maybe use a command line, maybe use something like an infrastructure as code. Like those are
Mhm.
long way away. Start small. Just logging
Basics.
into the AWS website, create a free tier account, start playing with it. Use the UI. I think that's the best way to start.
Yes. So another question is from Arjun. Is it necessary to learn AWS for any software job?
I mean, not all jobs need the cloud, right? So it's uh, because not all enterprises are making use of the cloud, and also a lot of these enterprises hide the cloud behind the scenes as well. So a lot of
Hmm.
developers don't even have access to the cloud directly, right?
Definitely.
So not all jobs need to have access. I mean, not all jobs need cloud knowledge, but a cloud knowledge is a big differentiator, right? If I have somebody who has good knowledge of cloud versus somebody who does not have good knowledge of cloud, I would prefer taking somebody who has good knowledge of cloud, because I might be thinking, okay, few years down the line or a couple of years down the line, I might be using the cloud. So rather pick up somebody who has a good awareness of the cloud. So
Mhm.
cloud is not mandatory for all the jobs, but it gives you a big advantage. I would put it that way.
Yeah, so it will just give you much more light on your career path. If you have the cloud knowledge, obviously you can perform cloud operations. So you can go into the cloud ops teams or something. So obviously, knowledge of cloud will be helpful as a developer, as a tester, whatever. Cloud knowledge will obviously help you out at any step of your career, right?
Absolutely.
So I think we have addressed the questions, and even the answers which you have given. That was completely, obviously will help all of those people who are listening to this right now. And knowledge of cloud, knowledge of AWS, why, what of cloud, why AWS. So the comparison between AWS, GCP, Azure, cloud, and DevOps, things you have answered very, very clearly. And if you haven't watched the video of Ranga, which was available at this Geeks or Geeks channel for the DevOps, which we have uh, broadcasted, so that will be helpful for DevOps part. So if you haven't watched that video, please watch that video also for DevOps thing. And for the cloud, I think all of the questions are answered. So many thank you for coming, Ranga, over here. So answering all of the questions and addressing the queries which are asked by the people in the comment section, right? So thank you so much, Ranga, for joining. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Have a
Thanks a
great
lot,
day.
Ashu. And everybody in the audience, have a great day. Keep learning.
Sure. Bye bye.